For Sunday, November 12th, you've found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, it's all about the elections. We've got the ladies on top in Atlanta. We've got the numbers behind the election results. And at Kennesaw State, we've got the kneelers. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
We're so glad you'll be with us on this Sunday. Most of our broadcast will be, we hope, an analysis of the elections of last week, the municipal elections and the odd-numbered years in Georgia. Obviously topped by the Atlanta mayor's race. Even if you don't live in Atlanta, you followed that race. And we now know that the numbers, since most of the polls were correct in the end, Keisha Lance Bottoms and Mary Norwood, both city council members, in the runoff. No real surprise there. Kathy Woolard ran third. I would say the biggest thing to me, looking at the numbers, was 3 women right there on top. So much for sexism and all that and the glass ceiling. But I guess there are numbers behind it. What is your, offer me your most interesting takeaway on the top 3 or the rest?
Well, I think my takeaway was the performance of Kathy Woolard. She ran basically a positive campaign, and she talked about ethics, and she pulled out some votes. I think the next takeaway is what's going to happen now with Keisha Bottoms and Mary Norwood, and we'll all be looking over the next few weeks on the alliances that will be formed. Will there be formal endorsements from the defeated candidates? Even if they're not, where will those voting blocks go with those defeated candidates? Both Bottoms and Norwood got half of the vote, but it's December 5th is the big day, so we've got a few weeks to analyze that.
Right.
And Jeff, what do you think? Kathy Woolard, we all agree. I think she overperformed. I wish she'd had the money for more television down the stretch. I think she could have crept up on second place.
She was a good candidate.
I think she was a mechanically perfect
She was a good
candidate.
candidate. She's just one of those people who's really strong on, public policy, urbanism, all of those kinds of issues that are important, particularly to young voters. And that's where you saw her strength in East Atlanta, in a lot of the new emerging sort of gentrifying parts of the city.
Her support's critical to Mary Norwood, isn't it?
Well, we don't know which way Kathy is going to go, actually. It'll be very interesting to see. But I mean, she's very serious about these issues and will probably support the candidate who she thinks is going to carry forth the issues that she championed during the campaign. A couple of things, I guess, stand out. One, obviously, the gender issue. The 3 women in the race coming in first, second, and third.
Yeah.
The second, of course, is the racial component. You had Keisha Lance Bottoms on top, but then you had the 3 white candidates, second, third, and fourth. Very interesting.
Well, let me help you there.
49% of the vote.
Let me help you there. I totaled it up. This is interesting. I don't like to get into deep numbers. For black candidates, there were 49,175 votes cast. And for white candidates, 47,282. So that's less than 2,000 votes.
Separating the two. So we know that we're going to have a really tight runoff.
Not that everybody votes race.
We know we're going to have a really tight runoff, but that's the point. And that's the key, what you just said. Not everybody votes race. And so while you see a predominance, it's not 100%. We don't even know that it's 90%.
Well,
You've got
show,
a good, and I think that it shows a little bit of progress. Yes, there's a predominant of, blacks are going to vote for blacks, whites are going to vote for whites, but you still have about 15% on either side, and that's probably progress.
It does show. Well, it does show too the growth of the white vote since, say, 8 years ago.
Oh, yeah, huge increase in the white vote.
I think,
Alexis, let me ask you.
Yes.
You were kind of a quiet supporter of Caesar Mitchell, the city council president. That had to be a tough pill for a guy who's been there like Caesar, and for a veteran councilman like Kwanzaa Hall.
Yes.
They didn't scratch.
No, they didn't take off, and it was unfortunate, particularly for Caesar, since he had citywide elections twice. He'd been elected president of city council, and he had the endorsements of the quote-unquote establishment people like Andy Young, Joe Lowry, and Glenda Hatcher was in the street with him every day for the last week or so. So it was a hard fall for him not to come in, and he came in 6th, right behind Vincent Ford.
It was amazing that you had Caesar Mitchell, who's been on the council for 12 years, council president for 8 of those years. and John Eves, who's been
Chair
Fulton
of the
County chair,
right.
together not getting 10% of the vote.
And I think with John Eves, of course, the former Fulton County Commission chairman, I think the whole tax mess in Fulton County really hurt him. And then we hadn't talked about Peter Ammon, who went down. I had said he was stuck in neutral for the last 2 weeks, and he was.
Yes.
Well, before we get to the Fulton County.
Can I just say one other thing,
Sure.
though? The other part is that the names you just called, they were such good candidates. That was part of the problem, too. Nobody could decide where to go. And so, as a result, you have this runoff of the top 2 vote getters, but at the same time, they were all really good candidates.
Peter Ammon spent $1 million of his own money. Put his wife on TV the last few days.
Right.
Didn't do a darn thing for him.
And you know, a footnote, Jeff and I were talking before the program about and we talked about this, the polling just didn't work. Yes, Mary Norwood and Keisha Bottoms did get the 1 and 2, but I think that was pretty conventional wisdom anyway. Right. But it didn't catch, for example, the Woolard vote and others.
Before we get to the other races, let's talk about what I think was the other big story of the night. Oh, by the way, we need to talk in a minute or two. We've left out something important, and that is the support of Kasim Reed for Keisha Lance Bottoms. We can get to that in a minute, but I want to talk about this, what was an utter fiasco in Fulton County, one of many. It's disgraceful that the state's largest county, one of the largest counties in the South, can't deliver election returns. I felt for my colleagues Jeff and Phil, they were here on the set trying to analyze, yet the county gave them nothing to analyze. The county that can't get its tax bills out, the county that now can't count election returns. Jeffrey, you were on TV at 11:30 when Fox 5 went back to entertainment coverage. 18% of the vote was in at that point.
Well,
That's
Phil was
ridiculous.
on at 11:30. I left early. I left here at about 10:40, 10:45, and we had about 3% of the vote at that point. Now we have
18%.
We have full states reporting. Florida, Virginia. Phil and I on the set talking about Virginia politics because we got nothing here in Fulton County.
Talk about
It was terrible. 3%, 2.5 hours after the polls closed.
Now,
Yes. And we saw, just for the viewers, what happened. Well, we had, again, a software problem. We had untrained people not knowing what they were doing. They had to call in experts. All that took time. I know you probably want to talk about the early votes. They had to be counted right then and there that evening after the polls closed. And also, I don't know why Atlanta has to keep its polls open till 8 o'clock. I wish the legislature needs to change that. That's not good, and that delayed things.
Well, the elections guy's only comment is, we did a little better than last time. Come on.
That's not so good.
Now, they got this crack county manager there, this Dick Anderson guy, big-time private industry executive, right?
But he has nothing to do with this.
He oversees, he's the county manager.
Well, I think the elections board, you have a board of elections, and you have an elections director, and
I say the buck stops with the county manager.
Well,
can't get the tax bills out. Oh, he doesn't really supervise them. Can't count the election vote. Oh, he doesn't. Well, what does he supervise?
Okay, but I think we need to direct our fire.
What does he supervise?
I do think we need to direct our fire that the board of elections and the elections director. He has a lot to be accountable for.
All right, we have to get out. When we come back, we'll look around the rest of the electoral landscape. We've got City Council President, Fulton County Commission, big tax questions in DeKalb, all kinds of things. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Okay, we'll quickly jump around a little bit. In other races, Atlanta Fulton County President, Atlanta City Council President, a runoff. The aging C.T. Martin eliminated among the three, and we have a runoff between Alex Wan
and Felicia Moore.
And
Felicia Moore.
And Felicia
City
Moore.
Council member,
And
two City Council
twice on the
members.
program, I've forgotten her name in the last month. I'm sorry to Ms. Moore, because she's a good candidate. Alex Wan's the millennial kind of a candidate. He's young, he's out.
He is.
And runs well in East Atlanta and those areas, Midtown?
Yes, and you can probably anticipate the support of C.T. Martin going to Alex Wan.
Right, and the other political dynamic is that Felicia has been very critical of the Reid administration, and I've liked her because she's been a watchdog over the taxpayer
She's
money.
one of the few who speaks up.
Right. She has challenged the mayor from time to time, and that will probably not stand to her good in the runoff because the mayor will certainly be championing Keisha Lance Bottoms. And
Well, the anti-Reed forces will be out in droves too. That we can talk about that. I think we didn't talk about Mary Norwood, but I think she ran a good race, and she talked about ethics and public safety, and she pulled the votes that she needed to pull. And now, as we've discussed, she just needs to build a coalition, just like Keisha Bottoms has to.
Right. Well, I'm sure they're all going to be going after the support of all the other candidates, but I'm not sure that Mary's going to fare as well because of her lack of forthrightness, if you will, on issues of race and her party affiliation.
You know, though, she was there on race and especially on homosexual issues well before the likes of Kasim Reed and Keisha Lance Bottoms, so she got that going for her, Mary Norwood.
And
she
pulled,
does on
Alexis,
gender,
she pulled
yes.
a respectable African-American vote. She always
Absolutely,
does.
she always does, and she clearly has capitalized on the Maynard Jackson neighborhood planning unit machinery because she has always she has someone in every neighborhood in town. She has supporters.
And the other huge winner was Kasim Reed because he pulled Keisha Lance Bottoms into first place. There's no question Kasim did. Now in the runoff, it could be the anti-Kasim forces coalesce behind Mary Norwood.
That's right, and you made the point how some of these
he's popular,
folks are going to go. I think ethics is going to be an issue. You got the City Hall corruption investigation continuing. It's a good question. What would Kathy Woolard do? She campaigned on ethics.
You know, we really don't know what these candidates are going to do,
Right.
and
That's critical.
But I really do think that Keisha Lance Bottoms is her own person. She can run on her own record. I think that she is fiercely independent, and you're going to see more of that. And you'll certainly see it if she becomes mayor. And she needs to begin to differentiate herself in that way. When I was working with Keisha Lance Bottoms at the Rec Authority, she was one of the most independent people that I've ever seen in any kind of city authority or city agency. And I think that will continue.
But I also think, I just want to put in what Jeff's support for Keisha continuing the advances made by the current mayor were sufficient, I think, to push her over the line.
You know, and it was the mayor's endorsement, but I think that, you know, there was that poll where she was at 19 and Mary was at 22, and shortly thereafter the mayor's endorsement came and she went on TV. And those were
TV
very
with the mayor's
effective
endorsement.
That's right, but those were very effective.
That's what I mean,
those
and
were
then
very
she moved
effective
up.
Those were,
commercials.
but the so-called anti-Kasim Reed candidates polled more.
They were fragmented too.
They were fragmented, but they polled more. So I would just say that's a factor.
It's going to be interesting.
In Fulton County, another runoff, this for the commission chair, odd special election, Republican eliminated. The county's about 55-45 Democrats, Republican. But Gabe Sterling, the Republican, was blown out in the first round.
Low turnout. It was a low turnout election all over Atlanta.
The runoff will be between
Two Democrats.
That's Rob
right.
Pitts,
Yes.
a familiar figure, and Keisha Waits, who has
The
trouble
state
paying her
legislature.
taxes. She's a state legislator, right?
Now, the key to
down.
that race is the Buckhead section of Atlanta, and Rob Pitts has traditionally done very well there.
He'll do well there.
And
And
so
that's
I
his
would predict that
neighborhood. He
Rob.
lives on the north side,
That's right,
so-
he lives there. I would predict that he should take that.
We have a runoff for mayor in Roswell, sizable city, Lori Henry, and who's the other fella?
Well, I know Lori, and I would, again, look in the crystal ball and think she should win. She had a lot of support. I thought she was going to win outright on election night, but it didn't happen.
Before we turn to the legislative business, I think we should mention that Ford Gravett, the mayor of Cumming, was defeated. The guy's been mayor for 47 years, and on the council before that. 50 years serving the citizens of Cumming.
Well, it was time for him to go. He was
Term
not
limits?
He was not a
Term
friend.
limits, anyone?
Yeah,
Well,
he was not a friend of open and transparent
No,
government
when he
either.
kicked that
Right.
Nydia Tisdale
So
out of, you know.
the
Out of
voters
that
took the
meeting.
car keys away from great grandpa.
Oh my,
Well said.
no.
He got to learn to live with those newfangled devices like cameras and
That's
stuff, right?
You need to allow them to have public input and transparency.
Okay, now the Democrats in the state can feel happy because they flipped, as they say, 3 legislative seats. Each has its own explanation. Some of it is anti-Trump sentiment. Some of it but also it's the unique nature of special elections. Where you just don't
Well,
know
they're
who's
low
going to vote.
turnout, and they're tricky. We've seen this for over 30 years.
And they're jungle primaries.
They're
We've seen this.
nonpartisan,
You
right?
cannot tell.
Is that what you
But
mean?
they're significant, and they're significant because you no longer have supermajority Republican
Yes.
supermajorities in either the Senate or the
Or the
House
House.
as a result of those elections on Tuesday.
Now, Phil, you lost, Republicans lost your state Senate seat, which
Well-
runs from Sandy Springs through Buckhead over to Smyrna.
That's right. Actually, the Republican vote won. They got 51% Republican, 49%
For different
Democrat. However,
candidates.
you're right. The seat was lost to two hard left Democrats. These aren't really traditional liberals. These are hard leftists that don't represent the district. And it's very interesting because I think that Hunter Hill, who had that seat, has come under criticism for leaving too early. He could have stayed on, and we could have had a regular party primary to decide the candidates where there are more votes.
But it is interesting that the Republicans got 50. The two Republicans, I guess there were 3 or 4 Republicans,
5 Republicans.
but they got 51% of the vote, yet 2 Democrats
Yeah.
are in the runoff.
Because they,
Interesting, huh?
they
And
were
very
the
low
majority
turnout.
vote
We
getters.
did not have any big races in Republican Sandy Springs, so that was a terrible turnout. And it is, we have traditionally in all the precincts of this state, the state has had terrible turnout records for 25 years we've been talking about. We're when it comes to all 50 states, we're really at the bottom.
Well, they need to fix these jungle primaries, and then
You're talking about nonpartisan races?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Have a
Special election primaries.
they should have primaries.
And I think,
primaries
to
and
choose
special
nominees.
election?
and I think
And
you'll-
then an election.
And then an election.
I think if you're having a
That's
special
true.
election, they ought to be partisan elections too. The legislature is going to look at that.
Okay. All right. So 8 o'clock voting. We want to do away with that, right?
You know what? Yeah, the
Fulton
legislature.
County.
That's why
This is
Jeff.
voter suppression you're talking here,
Well,
guys.
Jeff, that's why Jeff and I couldn't get some returns too. I don't know why Atlanta has 8 o'clock.
I don't know why they
voting.
don't let us vote online and then everybody can vote.
Thank
We
you, Alexis.
Goodness gracious.
Absolutely.
More
Let's go the other way.
fraud
They want
potential.
they want more restrictions on voting.
I have one
They,
word.
they
for
want
you.
more fraud.
I have one word for you, Alexis.
Which is that?
Equifax.
Well, what about your banking? Do you bank online?
I do.
Do you pay your taxes online?
No.
If we can do the IRS thing online, we can
Oh,
vote
I-
online.
Right, that's
All
right.
right, we've got to get out. We've got a lot to get to here. So bear with us. Next, Phil's pretty upset with Sam Olens, the Attorney General, and I'm upset with the cheerleaders, but we'll talk about it when we come
Sam
back.
Olens over at KSU?
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
not the Attorney General anymore. But
No,
yeah.
I meant 3: the Attorney General, Sam Olens, and
Okay.
the cheerleaders.
Okay.
He's not. You're right. I'm talking about 3 people. All right, we'll be back.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And don't forget, we have a YouTube channel, The Georgia Gang. Find the broadcast there every week, and we appreciate your comments on Facebook. There are other elections I want to get to, but there was a startling turnabout this week by Kennesaw State University President Sam Olens, who suddenly said, okay, the First Amendment's got to be respected, and the KSU cheerleaders can continue to kneel in protest of whatever they're protesting. They got a winning record, so it can't be that. What is it they're protesting? Are they after police, or are they un-American, and which is their issue?
What happened over the last
You know
week
being
is
bad.
that the legal counsel for the Board of Regents issued an opinion to all university system presidents under the First Amendment argument that the cheerleaders have a right, the athletes have a right to protest during a national anthem. I don't happen to agree with that legal interpretation, but that
Because they have a
explains.
First Amendment right.
No, because I believe in the. Let me finish my point before you jump on it.
Yeah. Let me hear it.
Every university in the system has a code of conduct.
Yes.
You just can't have, say, a young Republican student jump up in physics class and then argue against affirmative action. You've got rules.
Yes,
Coaches have rules. Let me finish this last point. The coach can punish. The coach can do this or that. The argument should be that let those coaches decide what's going on. But there's another factor too, and that is in the Coastal College of Georgia, the basketball athletes did a demonstration during the anthem, and one of the trustees quit. So the Board of Regents had to do something. Again, this is what happened back to KSU.
And they
question.
erred
You
on
said
the
that-
side of the First Amendment. And here we are, journalists who I don't know, more than anybody benefits
Sports
from
teams are
First
different.
Amendment and
No.
free speech, right, and constitutional rights.
There are limits.
Arguing against it and wanting restrictions on the First Amendment
are
for
limits.
college students.
Wait, I got one question.
Come on, it's
Phil.
a civics lesson.
Was it the legal counsel for the regents that did this, or the attorney general?
The legal counsel for the regents did it and then cited support from the attorney general.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't indicting all the wrong people.
And for the record, the cheerleaders were supporting the efforts started in the NFL by kneeling to protest racial inequality and police brutality.
And you know, for the record, everyone who takes the Pledge of Allegiance understands that this is not a perfect country, but you still pledge allegiance to the flag anyway and show respect.
And you do, but some people don't do it for religious reasons.
And some
also.
people
So
don't
there's-
do it for their whole lives. Sometimes when they're 18, they don't do it. When they're, 88, they do.
I understand.
All right.
You
And that's
understand that,
don't you think
right?
that's
It's
a
called
sad thing?
maturity.
Or do you like
No,
that?
it's
Do you
not.
like that? You
It's
love the disrespect?
It's not
I don't consider it
disrespect.
disrespect. I think it's a matter of personal choice.
We're in a big hurry here. Let me jumpstart that. Jeff, in DeKalb, 3 major tax measures passed.
Yes.
In essence, it's property tax relief and another 1 cent on the sales tax.
That's correct.
You'll benefit, I'll benefit.
Yes.
Therefore, I voted for it. I like it. 70% of the voters support it. I think it's because...
Not only did 70% of the voters support it, Dick, but 70% of the voters county-wide supported it. 70% of the
Right,
voters
right.
on the north side of the county supported
So
it.
that's
and in the
confidence
south side of the county, that's confidence
in
in
Michael
Michael
Thurman.
Thurman. And Michael Thurman says, guess what? This is a $1.2 billion tax reform. In a locality, in a county, $1.2 billion, $600 million in tax relief, $600 million in capital projects, and you had an exemption on unprepared food and drugs.
Wow.
That's
All right, and we're not
Go
going to have time to
DeKalb.
get to this, but we'll just tease this one. Looks like some big movement in the Gulch downtown. Applications filed for an Amazon-sized development, connected probably to the Atlanta Hawks and its owner, the team's owner, Anthony Ressler. All right, when we come back, we'll go to winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And on this Sunday, I've failed in my host duties because we should have acknowledged at the top of the broadcast that it is Veterans Day weekend, and all across the metro area, Friday and Saturday, there were moving observances to remember the men and women who served. So winners and losers, I will start with you, Jeff.
Thank you, Dick. Well, Michael Thurman over in DeKalb, and the confidence that voters showed in him across the county in approving those tax measures.
With Fran Miller, who wrote the legislation.
With Fran, exactly right. Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
and they were a
it took
team.
2 to do that.
They were a team, and we've seen some
2
powerful.
short guys.
We've seen some powerful, Democratic Republican alliances, and that's one of them. Keisha Lance Bottoms is a winner. Mary Norwood are winners, obviously, in that runoff, and they've got 3 weeks to get voters to decide. My loser, Roy Moore, he, Ten Commandments fame. There's actually, or maybe there should be, an 11th Amendment, and that is, or commandment rather, and that is, thou shalt not hit on 14-year-olds.
I thought you always said people were innocent. People are innocent until proven guilty. You always say that.
He's been proven guilty.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, he hadn't even come close to that yet. All right. Alexis, what do you have?
Well, I'm going to salute the mayor, Kasim Reed, Ed Baker, former publisher of the Business Chronicle, and Tony Conway, legendary events owner. They were all 3 of them were inducted into the Hospitality Hall of Fame this week by the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau for their contributions to the tourism industry in Atlanta. So congratulations to them. Also, Kathleen Bertrand has a new CD out. She's our local songbird who also happened to be at the Convention Bureau for many years, and it's Time to Love is the name of the CD. Sam Burston is the longtime person at the UNCF, is now the Senior Vice President for Advancement at Clark Atlanta University. And can I just say, I remember David Thomas is the new president of Morehouse College.
Thank you. Thank you.
I feel
Let's
so
loose
bad.
end. Thank you for clearing that up.
Thank you. And then finally, the MLK Rec Center opened this past week with a big fanfare. They have a new swimming pool and
The
wonderful
natatorium.
facility. Natatorium.
No, it's fantastic.
So it's a
a beautiful
wonderful,
facility.
wonderful addition to the King
Yes.
District.
You know, there's a lot of winners around the state, so congratulations to them in the political races. But I want to make Plant Vogel a winner because there was a hearing before the Public Service Commission the other day, and you had, of course, the pitches by the CEOs of the owners of the facility that we need clean, safe nuclear power for electrical reliability. But the unions were in favor with the business people in favor of continuing construction, and there was one winner, Juan the worker, who said, we want to work and we want electric reliability. So the veterans are also the winners.
Juan the worker, really?
Juan the worker. Yes, he was there.
Who's
About that.
Yes.
All right, Jeff, I'll join you with Fran Miller and Michael Thurman. They've worked well together. They served in the House together, remember, so they're able to do all that. Yes. The Kennesaw State cheerleaders are clearly a loser, as I tried to articulate a little bit earlier. And here's one I'm not sure about. Your Atlanta Falcons, they're 4-4, which is the very definition of mediocre. 4-4 is mediocre, right? They play the Dallas Cowboys today, who don't have Ezekiel. You'll see the game on Fox. It's the late national game at 4 o'clock. This is where the Falcons began their turnaround last year. Let's see what happens this year. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.